This is Grammar, Unit 1, Exercise 6. So as I mentioned in class, there are two things that are a little tricky this week. So we introduced a brand new pattern. So with a noun phrase 1, and I told you this was coming, the noun phrase 2. So it'll be a different thing than your subject. So the assignment is not the same as the students. The home run is not the same as the batter. Tires, not the same as the car. Even though in some cases they're like parts of the same thing, it's not really the exact same thing, okay? So we're not redefining the car as the tires. It's a separate thing. So noun phrase 1, noun phrase 2, and that second noun phrase is going to be the direct object, okay? And if you look at the bottom, it says one of the ways that you can identify the direct object meaning-wise is you can read your sentence and say who or what was verbed, which it's sort of, you have to look at your verb. So who or what was studied, right? Who or what was given. Even when you have an indirect object, it still works. The homework was given. So if we look at who or what was hit, it's the home run. Who or what was needed, it's the tires. Okay, so use that question to help you sort of identify if the noun phrase that follows that verb is the direct object. So that's the first complexity, is we have a new pattern with a transitive verb, something's transferring the action to the direct object. But then we've also got some mixing up. So I warned you that you might have patterns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 may show up in this exercise because this is getting us ready for the unit test when you're going to have one sentence from every type of verb. So you'll have a be verb sentence, a linking verb sentence, an intransitive sentence, intransitive verb sentence, and a transitive verb. Okay, and so you'll have to then with each of those 4 sentences, you have to chart it out, figure out which one it is, and kind of go through the process. And so if you haven't been going through this process, I highly recommend it because it makes it easier to end up in the right kind of area, especially once all of the verbs aren't kind of the same. So let's go through our first sentence. The boy prepared a terrific spaghetti dinner. So if we look for our verb, we say, okay, I think it's prepared. Don't draw your lines just yet because remember we could have an intransitive verb, so it's a possibility, or a transitive verb really. It's a possibility there could be a preposition after that maybe belongs with that verb. So if you draw your lines before you start looking for prepositions, you can miss that intransitive verb situation. So in this case though, when we look at our sentence, we don't have any prepositions. Remember, A is not on your prepositions list because A is one of those determiners that tell you have a noun phrase coming up. Hint, hint. So in this sentence, we can draw our lines. And when we look at what we have here, we have a noun phrase to the left, and we have a noun phrase to the right. So across that top row, you just have to now decide, is this going to be a redefinition, in which case this should be noun phrase 1, or are the boys a different thing than the spaghetti dinner, right? So unless you're Hannibal Lecter, the boys are different than the spaghetti dinner. Okay, so this is going to be then noun phrase 2. Once you have a noun phrase 2 across that top row, you can narrow it down and you're going to have a transitive verb, right? Because if you look at all the other sentences, you have a noun phrase in the predicate of 3, but it's the same because you're redefining. And you have a noun phrase in 5, but again, it's the same. The students are the same as the scholars. It's a redefinition. So it's only in the transitive verbs where you're going to have a direct object. So you have a transitive verb, and then looking at your predicate, you don't have another noun phrase, right? You don't have a second version of that second noun phrase, and you don't have an adjective. So that tells you that you have pattern 7 here, right? Because that's the only one we're really going to have. Later on, you may have some of those others. And you have a subject, right, who's doing the action, and you have a direct object. Who or what is being prepared? That's the spaghetti dinner. So that's your direct object. All right, and so with a transitive verb and a direct object only, that's our new pattern, pattern 7. Take a look at sentence 2. An old jalopy turned into our driveway. So if we say, what's our verb, right, turned, and you're probably thinking, oh my God, it's exercise 5 again, and that's exactly why I have it here. So you should recognize that turned can possibly be an intransitive that has that particle, or it can be an intransitive without that particle. So we're gonna have to look at the meaning and the movability. So when we have our sentence, an old jalopy turned into our driveway, if I underline my noun phrases, the sentence becomes maybe a little bit clearer for you. You've got something to the left of our verb, which is probably going to be our subject. And then you've got potentially a prepositional phrase, right? You've got potentially a verb with a particle, right? So something could transform, or something could, transformation. Or you could have it turned how into, and it like rammed into something, right? The car turned into the guardrail. So in this case, the old jalopy and the driveway, right, are two different things. So we know that when we look at our sentence, we've got meaning-wise, the old jalopy, is it changing directions or is it transforming into something else? In this case, an old jalopy is an old car, so if you don't know that, you can always look it up. It's an old car that it doesn't become the driveway, right? We're not mashing it up and paving over it. So in this case, it's a directional change. So we don't really want that preposition inside of our verb. So now we just have to figure out, is it the old jalopy turned into our driveway? Is that a prepositional phrase that tells us where, right? Or is it turned into, and then the driveway, like we smashed into the driveway? It makes more sense to say that this is a directional change, right? This is where. So we've got noun phrase, 1, the old jalopy. Took care of that prepositional phrase. Subject. Because all we have to the right of the verb is a little adverb, right? We don't have a noun phrase. We don't have an adjective or a noun phrase 1, right? And since it's not a be verb, because there's only 5 be verbs, is, am, are, was, and were, we have an intransitive. Okay, so use kind of the process of elimination once you've got the whole top row figured out to figure out which type of verb you have in your sentence. So pattern 6, this is an adverb we said, and that's what you have for number 2. So in class we'll look at 3, 4, and 5 on the back, and then 6 through 10 will be on your own.